Hey, thanks for watching this video. This is a really cool story. I didn't want to type it all out in the email, so if you logged on to this video, you want to hear the story. So here it is. A few months ago, me and Larry and our team leaders were talking about the need to bring somebody into our worship services who could look at a worship service as almost like it was a creative medium and develop art in that space. So someone who can think through what a worship service is, how to make it compelling, to think through the music and the videos and the creative elements and the aesthetic, everything. And so we said, the type of person who would have to do that, it's got to be someone who knows our church really well and someone who knows the East Bay really well, because we want to build something that really represents the vibe of the East Bay, but also someone who's an artist and who loves creating and wants to look at the worship service as a place to do art. And we had no ideas. And so I left that meeting and I went off by myself and I spent some time in prayer. And I walked down the hill over towards McDonald's, down the front of the hill at the church. And I remember getting about halfway down the hill and saying, God, I pray that you would just show me someone who's creating great art in some space somewhere that I can say to them, if you can do with a worship service what you've done in this artistic space, I want you to come and be our creative director. And immediately my mind went to James Teyler. And James has been doing great work with a band called Worthwhile that he started, and they're in the hardcore scene. And what I love about Worthwhile is not that we're going to start hardcore music in our worship services, but with Worthwhile, James created an amazing band that had a totally Christian worldview, amazingly Christian lyrics, and yet it wasn't like the cheap Christian alternative of hardcore music. It was like legitimate hardcore music. And I imagine this conversation where I went to James Teyler and said, James, if you can do with a worship service what you were able to do in the hardcore scene, I think you should step into this role as creative director. And yet the problem, even as I prayed about it, was that James is our middle school pastor. And we love student ministries, and I know James loves middle school ministry. He loves the kids. He loves everything about it. He's one of those guys who I could see spending his whole life as a middle school pastor just being amazing there, doing a great work. And so I thought, you know what, I would never ask James to leave middle school. I wouldn't even hint at it. But if this ever opens up, God, that would be a really cool fit. And so I decided to call James and have lunch with him. And so I sat down for lunch with James and I said, James, tell me how middle school ministry is. And James said, oh, it's great. I love it. I love the kids. I love doing middle school ministry. He said, but honestly, it's funny that you asked, because I'm in this season right now where I feel like God might be calling me to do something different. And I said, what do you mean different? Like leave the church different or go tour with your band different? He said, no. He said, I love what I'm doing with my band because I get to create and do art. And I feel like God has created me to be a creative. And I don't feel like I do that a lot as a middle school pastor. But I also feel like I love the church and I want to be part of the church and serve in the church. And so I honestly don't know what I'm going to do next. But I feel like God is preparing me to step into something where I can be working in the local church, but doing primarily the work of an artist, creating in some kind of medium somewhere. And as he said it, I thought, this is coming together. And so I said, hey, this is what we're actually been talking about needing to do with our worship services. What do you think? And James said, that sounds unbelievable. And so I went back to Larry. We started a conversation and kind of went back and forth and realized that's a great fit. And so James is stepping into that slot over the next few weeks and starting to figure out what it means to step into that role here. But we didn't want to move him forward until we realized what would be a good fit for middle school ministry, because we love student ministries and we want those ministries to thrive, and we wouldn't take someone awesome like James and move him out unless someone great could step in. And so really quickly, James and Charles and Ryan Suzuki and others said, well, what about Ryan G? Now, Ryan G grew up in our youth ministries. He's called to ministry. He went and got a degree for ministry. He's getting married in the fall. He's trying to figure out what to do for this next season of his life. He wants to step into ministry. He's from our church. He goes to our church. What about Ryan G? And so Charles connected with Ryan G and said, hey, would you want to step into the middle school ministry slot? And Ryan G said, oh my goodness, that would be amazing. And so he's jumping into that. And so right now, Ryan G and James and Charles and those guys are all up at camp, and they're talking to the kids about how over these next few months we're going to make a transition with middle school where James is going to stay at the church, he'll be around, but he's going to be moving into this new slot with creative direction for our worship services, and Ryan G is going to step in and be the guy to be the pastor for middle school ministries. And what I love about this is not just that God is doing some great things to kind of put all these pieces together as we build this vision towards creative worship services and compelling worship services, but that we love when we raise up people within our own church community to serve our church community. And so it's so cool to see someone like Ryan G step into this slot, but in a way where James isn't leaving. He's not going anywhere. And so for the kids in the middle school ministry who love James, James is still here. They're still going to see him on Sundays. He'll be able to work side by side with Ryan for a little season here and have a great transition. And so it's just so cool for me to see how God just moves stuff around to get everyone in the right position to do great work of life transformation with our students and with this new vision of compelling services for the year to come. And I thought, I got to see God do all that. And I was supposed to send out an email and say, hey, here's some changes. But I thought, you know what? If you want to see a glimpse into the story of what God's doing, it's such a cool story. I'd love to tell you the extended version if you want to. Come find me. But there's the story. Now you can read on in the email and see kind of the bullet points there. But anyway, just wanted to share that with you. God is good. He's working. And it's just cool to see how he works.